Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Talking Smack. We're talking superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. With me again this week is Alex Lasden.
Hello, hello.
Alex, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
We missed you.
Oh, thank you.
Next week is going to be a pre-recorded episode with me and Lewis. We're going to be discussing our all-time favorite animated movies. For Lewis's sake, I left Moana off my list, only because I knew that would create a really big fight between he and I. So we left that one out of it just because I didn't want to have to kick him out of my house while we were in the middle of recording.
Well, as long as you can get a shout-out to maybe Black Cauldron for me, that would be really appreciated.
No, there's no Black Cauldron appearance in this one.
Oh, man. Oh, well.
We do have a good Avatar dig in there, too, so that's what we call a tease in the biz. So let's dive right into it. First things up in the news this week, Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palimotti are leaving Harley Quinn after this coming December's issue. So starting January or February, there will be a new writer on Harley Quinn for DC.
And I'm completely off of that comic now. I've been really excited about their run and what they've been doing with it. Their release stated that they had big plans and been organizing their thoughts and their storyline towards this ending because they want to take some time off. She wants to actually get back to full-time drawing, not just writing, not just drawing the covers and writing the scripts. And they wanted to take their actual honeymoon, which is nice for them. But I'm going to be out until I see some really good reviews come through for that comic, because as far as I consider it, she has made that product her own and has been the truest version since the animated series to be carried forward.
We discussed this when Harley was celebrating her 25th birthday. The only thing that I really don't like from the Jimmy Palimotti and Amanda Conner run is the bleached white skin. Everything else is, as you said, almost pitch perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, it's sad, but they've been doing this comic for about 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that.
Geez, I think they've been doing it closer to 4 or 5. I think it launched in 2012 or 2013.
Oh, Jesus, has it been that long? I know they said it's like issue 34, but they've renumbered
They've
twice.
renumbered 3 times.
3 times, okay.
They've had 3 different number ones. They had a Rebirth number 1, and then they had a new number 1, or not a Rebirth, a new 52 number 1, and then they went to a new number 1 after the new 52 line ended, and then they did another number 1, I believe.
Well, that sounds complicated. Perhaps they need a vacation from trying to remember that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. It's not that it matters. Maybe they only did 2 renumberings, because the Harley Quinn book was one of their more successful ones, so they didn't bother renumbering it because of that. But they have gone back to the original numbers, and Marvel's started to do this too, where they've gone back to original numberings. Like Amazing Spider-Man just had issue 789 or 780 or something like that, after having 3 number 1s come out in the last 4 years.
And people wonder why they're not reading comics. I picked up from issue 1. Which issue 1? The 2012, 2014's The New Rebirth, The Secret War 3. Which number 1 are you talking about?
Yeah, Marvel they've been doing more seasons than anything, and it's kind of annoying just because it does kind of ruin the whole collector's thing. Mm-hmm. I do like that they're going back, but it also seems very fortuitous that they're coming back when Captain America is about to hit issue 700. I think Thor is about to hit issue 700 as well. Spider-Man's about to hit issue 800. So all of a sudden they're going back to the large numbers when it's very fortuitous and a milestone number for them. And then DC did the same thing with Rebirth. They brought Action Comics and I believe the Detective Comics back up to their original numbers, which I believe Action Comics was in the high 600s at that point. Same thing with Detective Comics. They were both in that 680 to 690 range. Issue 700 is not too far off for those if they haven't already come to it.
That just sounds even more complicated. But I'm hoping that after their vacation that I can see them start writing and drawing something else, because I've always loved Amanda Conner's art style, just because she has a very good control over different facial expressions, as well as creating different faces for each person. Like a lot of artists I've noticed only have maybe like a stock, like 3 or 4 guy faces that are very close to the same, and then really notice that they're different because you're like, oh, because you recognize the character. And she is very good at that with not only her male faces but her female faces, and I just am really drawn to her art style. So
yeah, and one of the things I love about her art is that she draws women in a very believable way. They're not all sticks.
Yeah.
When she was drawing full-time for Harley, or at least for the covers, Harley is a little thicker, which, I mean, she's supposed to be a gymnast, so she would be a little thinner, but, you know, she hasn't been doing the gymnastics thing for a while. She's more or less been kind of lounging around being a landlord for this apartment building that she's been running in this new run. And so, you know, she's going to be a little thicker. She's still fit, but she's not a twig.
No.
And she's more athletic, so she's obviously not going to be so thin. And I like that she makes them a more natural body type.
Good wishes to her, and hopefully they return sometime in the new year with a really good announcement of some new product from the two of them.
Yeah, I know Jimmy's working on a new Kickstarter, which I think he does a biannual Kickstarter project. Amanda usually is involved in some way, whether it's story helping or doing covers. She doesn't do a lot with the artwork in those. They do enough stuff to get by, and they've been really heavy in the con circuit even after cutting back a little bit in recent years. Good luck and good fortune to them. Hopefully whoever DC is bringing on to write the new Harley Quinn does the character justice and makes an entertaining story. Moving on, we have Giovanni Ribisi returning to the Avatar sequels. This is very much a filler news segment here.
Yay! We'll see him in 3, 4, 7, and 8 years. Yay!
He'll be there to putt more golf balls at you in 3D.
Exactly.
That's really the only thing I remember him doing, is saying the word unobtainium, which is like the worst MacGuffin name ever. And then he also putted the golf ball for the 3D effect at the camera. Ooh.
Yeah, the very contrived, okay, what we're here for is this piece of rock goes for 2.7 million a gram back on Earth. You know, it's like, oh yeah, evil corporation, got it. All right, we're good. But I mean, I like him as an actor. He's always amused me, and mostly these days I remember him from being the creepy guy in Ted and Ted 2.
I still haven't seen Ted 2.
It's actually, I understand that people didn't flock to it like they did the first one. Somehow the first one made 600 million worldwide. The second one made half of that. It was still enjoyable. It was just, it was just a good movie. If you dig Seth MacFarlane, it's obviously just one of his movies and carried the plotline forward in a different way than expected. But it's well worth watching, mostly because Giovanni Ribisi is back and he's really creepy again.
Yeah, he's had a sneaky good and sneaky long career. I mean, he was in Cold Mountain. He played Phoebe's brother in Friends. He was in The Rum Diary. He was in Gone in 60 Seconds. He was in Boiler Room. He was in Saving Private Ryan. He was a medic.
Gone in 60 Seconds. Is he the brother that Nick Cage is trying to get out of trouble? Is that what his character was?
Kip Raines. I think that's right.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
Wow, good memory. Yep. He's the screw-up little brother. I know a lot of people think of him because he looks very similar to Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day.
Right.
And so I know a lot of people have some weird fascination with him as well. He also has a 15-episode run on The Wonder Years as Jeff Billings.
Oh, I'm going to have to rewatch that because I don't remember him on it at all.
No. But yeah, I mean, he was in Public Enemies with Johnny Depp. He also had another run-in with Johnny Depp in The Rum Diary. He's had a sneaky long and sneaky good career. He's not necessarily a name actor, but he finds good projects.
Oddly enough, I can actually think of 2 lines of his that I actually remember. It's the unobtainium line, and then I think it's from the first episode he was in Friends, when he's talking about his life and career. He looks straight at Chandler and goes, "I'm going to be a singer." And then he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "I got to keep it true to who I am. Hardcore gangster rap."
Yeah, and then I remember when Phoebe tells him that he's pregnant, he's like, "My sister's going to have my baby!"
Yeah, exactly. Well, glad to see him, I guess.
Yeah.
Whenever I get around to seeing those movies.
There's not really much you can say about it. You weren't here when we were talking about Kate Winslet joining the cast, or being confirmed as the cast as the character of Roland. That is clearly just she wants to work with James Cameron again move.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was curious what your thoughts were. Do you think she's going to be a Na'vi, or do you think we're going off Pandora and moving to a different planet and she'll be a different alien? Because I think with the name Roland, she's going to be an alien, unless that's her last name.
I don't know. That she's going to be in the movie, I think elevates it a little bit. I mean, she obviously read the scripts, but then again, I think she also must have read the scripts for the Divergent series and liked them too.
Or she just really wanted the payday.
Well, that $1 billion has got to get cut up somehow across 4 movies and salaries. Yeah, she'll probably be an AV of some kind. But it's really, I find kind of interesting, is at one point she had said, like early in career, that James Cameron was such a tyrant on set and he was so demanding and she would never work with him again. And 20 years later, she's going to work with him again for 4 movies.
That we're aware of.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows how many sequels James Cameron has? The Marvel Cinematic Universe is going strong at almost 20 movies. I can do that many for just Avatar.
Oh, God, no.
Hey, you can get a lot of propaganda out of that.
I'm sure. I mean, he did organize his schedule so that I think their movies are coming in 2020, 2021, then it's 2024 and 2025, and he's got to fit Terminator, the reboot.
Well, he's only a producer on that, so basically he's quality control. He can just kind of show up or take a look at a scene and be like, that doesn't work. Change that.
Well, supposedly he's also helping craft the script, so, so we'll see what happens there. But he has to figure something out. He's got a very busy schedule making a movie every 10 years.
Apparently it's now not a Talking Smack episode without some Avatar news as well as Star Wars news, which, don't worry, we're getting to it. The name of this episode is the one with all the trailers, so you can only imagine what we're getting to.
Well, if you want, I can fill some time by reading this Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise book you have on your desk here.
It's a comic, thank you.
I'll put it back down.
Thank you. That's Derek's, so I gotta take good care of that. Next thing we're going to talk about, next thing you're going to talk about, because I have no input on this, Lore, which just debuted on Amazon Prime this Friday the 13th. So fill us in on what this is.
All right, so Lore is a podcast started about 2 years ago by a guy named Aaron Mahnke, who which goes into different types of folklore. He's kind of started, it is all horror-based in some kind of aspect, and it kind of started towards vampires, werewolves, people being buried alive, and stories like that. They're all based on actual stories that have happened that he and his researcher have dug up and looked at. And it's a very popular podcast. I think it gets around 5 million downloads a month, and he does it bi-weekly. So he's up to, I think, 73 or 74 episodes by now. He somehow was able to find his way into a deal in which he got at least one season out of Amazon. It's going to be 6 episodes. They picked 6 of his different scripts, and they did a kind of pseudo PBS History Channel, and they actually used to do history, kind of look to it. So he still narrates them and tells the story, but then there's live action reenactments, there's animation, there's historical footage from like different things that they've done.
So almost like an Unsolved Mysteries kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And it actually is, I've watched the first 4 episodes, and it's still pretty good. It's one of those shows where he doesn't judge. He's not saying like, well, this was eventually debunked. Okay, so the first episode was about the fear of being buried alive. And it was about this father in New England in the just before the turn of the 20th century, where his family was being struck by tuberculosis. His wife had it a few years later. His eldest daughter got it. Then a few years after that, his son got it. But then they sent him away to Colorado, and he got better. But in the time his son was gone, his other daughter got it, and how the doctors were trying to treat them, and they still called it consumption, and that modern medicine wasn't working. So the people of that town began to believe that it was a spirit that had possessed a body and was coming back to attack them. So eventually what happens is they start digging up his family, even kind of against his will, but they because they believe that if they found the body that was preserved, the demon took that body and was using it to spread the plague back upon the family in town. And what happens is they eventually get to the newest daughter, but the doctor who's there explains, well, the reason why she looks fresh is it's winter. We've had her in the cold house because we haven't been able to bury her, and it's only been 3 months. But still, they cut her heart and liver out, they burn it, they make it into a tea, they give it to the son, and the son still dies a few months later. But what happens there is that, it was discovered, it was kind of got out that these backwoods Massachusetts people with their weird beliefs about drinking tea and vampires and stuff like that. So he then tells other stories about this was a time before when people were still being buried alive, and that's where he had people who were selling these weird coffins where they left like a breathing tube up and a bell to ring or something, so you could look down and see if the people were like 2-3 days later, hey, they woke up. We had buried them, but they're back awake. And so that's the kind of stuff he tells. And the most recent episode, now that I've remembered, was about electroshock treatments and how electroshock mixed with lobotomies, and how that was applied to different families. Some prominent families were doing it, and this doctor who really believed it was an effective form of medicine, and how I forget his name, but he'd gone around the U.S. and had done himself like 3,500 of them because he believed it was an effective form of treatment, and people got better from it, which some people did, but a lot of people died. And so he correlates that with our fears of the unknown, fears of how our mind works, and basically what we do to each other in the name of good. And it's just a really interesting podcast. It kind of terrifies you. And Robert Patrick's in an episode, so that's good.
I might have to give that one a shot. I'm not a huge horror fan, so that one definitely might have to go by the wayside for me, but I might give it a shot.
It's not. He doesn't necessarily focus on horror. Like, he's just more like what people have done to each other, and it's just kind of fascinating how that works.
It's a real world horror. It's not necessarily supernatural.
No, and he doesn't. That's the thing I like, is that he never passes judgment or debunks anything. He's just more like, this is the information we have, and this is what happened. It's no obvious like, well, we redug up the body, and it turns out that this person actually had leukemia or something, or something like that. It's just like, these are these people's experiences and was documented at that time.
So yeah, that's on Amazon Prime. I believe it debuted on Friday the 13th.
Yep. It came out yesterday. All 6 episodes. They're quick watches. They average, like in his podcast, he tries to keep between 20 and 35 minutes. And then the TV show with reenactments is around 30 to 40 minutes.
All right. Yeah. So that's Lore on Amazon Prime. You can also find that on your podcasting service that you subscribe to. I'm sure you can find it there too. Very cool stuff. Now, next thing we're going to talk about, as far as I'm concerned, ad nauseum, because even mentioning this movie causes me a slight amount of reflux. The Gambit movie has been slated for Valentine's Day 2019.
Yay! It's back on the schedule. I'm excited.
The Gambit movie that has been in production hell ever since they were trying to get it off the ground when X-Men Origins Wolverine came out has been slated once again. It was originally supposed to be slated to come out this year in October, so technically it's supposed to be coming out anytime now.
Oh yeah, anytime. I've been waiting. Got my ticket purchased.
And I pass no judgment on anyone who's waiting for this movie, but what is the deal with Gambit? I don't get it. The dude's a sexual predator.
I only know him from the TV show, and
even there he's very creepy. Rogue has obviously some kind of thing for him, but I feel like it's more of he wore me down sort of thing, not necessarily he's cute and I think we have a lot in common, let's get to know each other sort of thing.
Gambit was never one of my favorite guys, just because I never understood. Until the age of reason, I thought that the actual playing cards were actually his superpower, not that he could, put potential kinetic energy and stuff and make that. I always thought it was playing cards. I'm like, well, that sucks. What if he forgets a pack or he runs out? Several of the women in my life are telling me that they're excited for it because they really like Gambit, which I'm perfectly fine with them liking him. I think it has mostly to do with the accent.
That's very, very likely.
And plausible. He's French but not. He's American.
He's Cajun.
Yes, he's American but not. He's French but not. And how this goes is I can't think of a movie where he's done an accent. And the only real vivid...
Didn't he do a country accent in Kingsman? I still haven't seen it, but I think he has like that southern drawl.
Oh my god, yeah, wow. Talk about how forgettable that movie was. It was really good, and I completely forgot he was in it.
And he's also barely in it.
Yeah.
Like, from things I've heard, they should have merged Oberyn Martell with Channing Tatum's character and given Channing Tatum more stuff to do. Like, Oberyn Martell basically could have not existed, and it wouldn't have impacted anything as long as you brought Channing Tatum's character over with it.
Oh, if they'd merged it, yeah. Because Jeff Bridges was in there more than he was, and Channing Tatum was in it to get briefly yelled at, then he went into a coma, and then got better.
He has that fuck yeah line where Eggsy is just like, it's very American, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you go, fuck yeah.
Yeah, the majority of his role was well, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, and it is very early in the movie, but he captures the Kingsmen when they come to ask him for help, and there's this very slightly too long, uncomfortable torture sequence where he's torturing Eggsy and Merlin. It's kind of almost creepily long because they're the good guys, and we know that the statesmen are supposed to be the other good guys, but he's torturing them. It went on just a little too long, and then it's just like, oh, it's like, oh, good. Oh, you guys are good guys. Okay, we're good. And everybody's like, yeah, we're great. And so it's like, you guys took this very well. I mean, he was about to light you on fire after, like, beating the hell out of you and electrocuting you, but sure. But you're right. He did a southern drawl on it, but it wasn't, like, a pronounced one. It was more like a slight twangy, like, Nashvilleian drawl, maybe. It was just enough to, like, you're like, oh, you're from south somewhere.
Yeah, I still haven't seen Kingsman. I've heard we'll say mediocre things. I don't even want to say mixed things. I still want to see it because I enjoy that universe. I've heard a lot about it. One of my favorite podcasts that's not this podcast talked about it at length. And they talked about how it was very disappointing, but the universe still interests them. So I still want to see it, and obviously form my own opinion. I don't want to be one of those DC fanboys that, I'm going to watch it and make my own opinion. Well, no shit. You should. No one's saying you can't.
Well, to put some good vibes out there, actually, it's not as good as the first one. It does take a bit of a step back, but I thought it was fairly enjoyable. It was just slightly forgettable. I was more intrigued by what they would do with the third one versus what they did with the second one.
And maybe they'll have a new Star Trek sort of thing going where the odd ones are good and the even ones are bad.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah, Gambit movie. I'm probably going to pass on it, again, unless I have to see it for this podcast. Even then, I might just take a day off that time of the year because I'll have a second kid with a birthday coming up around that time. So maybe I'll just have to pass that off to you and someone else for that week.
I'll be there. The two women in my life want to see Channing Tatum with a southern accent.
Cajun accent.
Correct.
So using Gambit as a transition tool, we're going to get into our main topic this week, which is trailers. And boy, were there a lot of high-profile trailers this week. We had, starting off with, the New Mutants trailer. And that's not the New Mutants trailer. That is the movie that is called The New Mutants, which had a trailer.
I'm tentatively excited about it, mostly because it looks like Fox is allowing this director to do his own thing, which might start working for them if they're allowing this kind of director genre-driven project. Did I say genre? Genre-driven project. Because we had Deadpool...
nothing genre snow.
Oh, God. Because we had Deadpool, which was very much its own product, and the Deadpool sequel hopefully continues to be its own product. We had Logan, which was basically a Western cross-country movie, and who knows what the heck that Dark Phoenix is going to be. I'm assuming that's just going to be
shit.
Yeah, basically. But now we have the New Mutants, which is supposed to be Deadpool-ish. Fox movie mutant universe. They because Ryan Reynolds has mentioned that like Deadpool and the New Mutants may eventually meet up in like Deadpool 3, and so they're going to be more tied to him than what's going on with the traditional X-Men. But it's a horror movie, and I'm not sure that intrigues me or not. It mostly kind of excites me that it's like, oh wow, this is interesting. Bunch of kids with superpowers in a haunted asylum. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, I watched this trailer and I was very unimpressed. It just seemed very horror movie tropey to me. Without the word mutant being uttered in there, I would have thought, oh, this is what they were trying to do with Flatliners.
Oh, geez, yeah. Has that come and gone already?
Yeah, that had a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes for a while. I think it jumped up to 8%.
Yeah, you're right. Other than mentioning mutants, they didn't seem to display any powers unless the kid on fire in a washing machine was a power. But I'm not so sure about that. I didn't see any obvious usage of some kind of mutant ability. I mean, no one was flying, no one was casting fireworks out of their hands or anything like that. You got to see.
I don't think Jubilee would be a good option for a horror movie.
That would be actually kind of awesome. Like, oh no, the dark is coming out. Fireworks! Fireworks for my fingertips, everybody.
I mean, it would be a great comedic moment, and it would be a very good slap in the face to some of the people that really hate Jubilee. You want a horror movie? We're going to put Jubilee front and center.
And then, of course, if you have the token scene in the horror movie, which is mandated, of them in the rain, she's already got her rain slicker on. She's prepared for a horror movie. She's got rain slickers and fireworks. Darkness and rain have nothing on her.
We were looking this up before we recorded, and the cast is interesting, I guess we'll say. Maisie Williams is obviously the headliner from Game of Thrones. She plays Arya. She's playing Rain Sinclair, a.k.a. Wolfsbane. And Wolfsbane, for those of you that don't know, in the comics is a Scottish mutant. She possesses the ability to transform into a wolf, hence the very unoriginal name Wolfsbane. She has honed her powers to shift between human and wolf characteristics, but must keep her feral instincts at bay when she does. So, I mean, that creates a nice little American Werewolf in London sort of thing. Mm-hmm. If that becomes her ability, she's going to be able to transform, and all of a sudden she's like the Hulk in Avengers, where he loses control and he's just a rage ball chasing after everyone and everything.
Right.
So, that could work. And then there's also Anya Taylor-Joy, who's playing Ilyana Rasputin, also known as Magic, also known as the sister to Colossus, Peter. I think he's Rasputin. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
So her abilities are, in the Marvel Comics universe, she's essentially like the second or third greatest magician. Well, third or fourth greatest magician in the Marvel comic universe. Number 1 is Stephen Strange. Number 2 is actually Doctor Doom, if you didn't know. If anything happens to Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom becomes the new Sorcerer Supreme.
We got to make that happen.
He's already been Iron Man. Why not make him the new Doctor Strange? So she's going to be in there. It'll be interesting to see how they translate her powers. And then Charlie Heaton is playing Cannonball. And let's pull up his Wikipedia page here. Cannonball is a mutant who uses the ability to fly at jet speeds while encased in an impenetrable force field. So think Negasonic Teen Warhead from Deadpool, but he's also encased in a protective field. He's not just able to like bolt forward and plow into someone. Where I think Negasonic Teenage Warhead is, I think she's just really dense, which is why she's able to do that, plus burst herself forward. Unless they just never touch on it. But her powers are very different from her powers in the comic. So it's not like it actually matters. And it's Fox, so it's probably going to be anywhere between average to bad.
So I take it you were not impressed by the trailer.
I really was not. I'm not a horror movie fan, but again, it felt like it was very tropey to me. Do much, but it's a teaser trailer, so it's not really going to give you much, especially for something that's supposed to be a horror movie. You want to get people in there for the scares. You don't necessarily want to get them in there for the story, which it looks like to me the story might be more of a sucker punch.
Yeah.
It could end up being very sucker punchy, but with horror elements instead of anime elements.
Well, you're not turning me off from that, because I actually am one of the few people in the world who actually likes Sucker Punch.
I just didn't get it. And the director does nothing for me either. The director is the guy who did The Fault in Our Stars, which...
yeah, that's that one.
That's the cancer movie?
Yeah, John Green, who I briefly really liked as an internet personality, and now I don't really like.
I enjoy most of his movies. I enjoy a lot of his books. I really enjoyed An Abundance of Catherines. I think Looking for Alaska is one of my favorite books by him. The Fault in Our Stars was... I don't think that was a very good movie to adapt. I think it was just going more for the tearjerker sort of thing, which a lot of John Green books don't have a real happy ending. They have more of a life lesson. So the director doesn't do much for me, but again, maybe he just hasn't found his niche, which this could be his niche. You never know. It's interesting enough. Some other people that are showing up in there. Henry Zaga is showing up as Robert DaCosta, also known as Sunspot, who's kind of a Human Torch kind of character. And that's all that's really notable in there as far as mutants. I'll still probably end up seeing this one just because it's a Fox X-Men movie, so it's either going to be, like I said, decent to really good or really bad.
To me, it looks different enough. I'm going to wait to see a second trailer because it just has... I'm just excited that Fox is giving a little bit of leeway other than every X-Men movie or X-Men Universe movie must have the world is being destroyed. And a bunch of kids running around a mental asylum with superpowers could be intriguing. Especially, if one of them turns out to be a witch, One of them turns out to be from the 80s. One of them turns out to be a faceless assassin.
Oh, yeah, that kid in the mask. That's one thing we wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah,
There's
was
a
weird.
spot in the trailer where some kid's wearing a really weird, not necessarily a happy face mask or a ghost face mask, but it's like a really weird oval with eye slits, and then he's got like a smile or a mouth on it, and he rips it off, and they immediately cut to someone screaming as he rips off the mask. And I really want to know what's under that mask.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's probably the number one intrigue I have for that movie. And in my head, I just think of it as that episode of South Park where the Canadian has the bag over his head and he's the ugliest Canadian ever.
Oh, yeah.
And they lift the bag over his head and he just looks like every other Canadian.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to lift the bag and it's going to be Liam Hemsworth.
Johnny Depp. That's who it's going to be. Lift the mask and turns out it's been Johnny Depp this entire time.
Or Josh Gad.
Oh, yep, there you go.
Josh Gad's in everything now. We don't really need to rate these. Especially for the two that are coming up. For this one, I'm gonna go pass. I really don't think I need to see this one, but I probably will just because I want to be able to talk about it. If I didn't have this podcast, I would probably say pass.
No, I'll go see it. It looks interesting enough, and hopefully there's enough mutants and enough ties that if there is a sequel or they are building these characters up to be part of the Deadpool verse of the Fox universe, that makes a lot of sense. Oh God, what if it actually ends with like Deadpool showing up and like out of the last like 30 seconds
ruin the entire mood of the movie.
Everybody's like depressed. There's the asylum's burned down. A few of the kids are unfortunately dead. They're recovering from this horrific incidents, and he walks up and goes, "Hey guys!"
There's this really great fan-made after credits scene for Logan. I honestly thought it was legitimate for a minute because the Deadpool suit that they got was on point. Like it just looked great. It's an add-on credit scene for Logan, and again, it's a fan-made thing where they have Deadpool walk up with a shovel, his Hello Kitty backpack, and a syringe full of that mutant juice that they have in Logan. And he's just like, "We're not getting out of this team up yet, you beautiful bastard." And he starts digging Logan out of his grave so he can give him the juice and wake him up. And I was just like, that would have been great. That would have been a great way to say maybe Hugh Jackman's not done, but he actually is.
That would have been fantastic. See, my actual hope for Deadpool, well, it won't happen in Deadpool 2, but Deadpool 3, my actual hope, and I'm hoping that somebody has heard this and actually does it, is that Deadpool is in trouble. He's like, he's alone. The other mutants are in danger. It's not a world event, world destructive event, but it's something is going on. And he needs Wolverine. He's like, Wolverine's the only one who can get me. So they show him hop in a plane. He goes to Hollywood. He goes to a big house, and he kidnaps Hugh Jackman. and Hugh Jackman, keeps his Australian accent. Hugh Jackman plays himself. But Deadpool is so meta. He's like, "No, you're Wolverine." He's like, "What? No, I'm not." He's like, "You've been playing Wolverine for 17." He's like, "I don't do that," And then he pulls the prop claws out of his bag, forces Hugh Jackman at gunpoint to get in the cab with him, forces him to wear the prop claws, brings him back. They go to fight the bad guy. Hugh Jackman is just freaked out and like pissing himself in fear. They go to fight the bad guy, and Hugh Jackman just immediately gets killed.
I would love to see that. That would be amazing.
It's just a throwaway 7-minute segment of
which is perfect for Deadpool.
Which would be fantastic, and then the entire end fight, Hugh Jackman's body's on the floor, and Deadpool's like, "Get up, you're gonna heal, it's gonna be fine," just yelling at him, trying to encourage him.
And then the throwaway line at the end is, I guess he really is done with Wolverine.
Oh, there we go. All right, we're getting on a plane. We're going to Hollywood. We're going to go outside of Fox Studios.
Simon Kinberg wouldn't allow it. It's not grounded enough.
Oh, we could pitch this. It could work.
Simon Kinberg, the guy who's directing and writing the Dark Phoenix movie, but is like, we don't want to make it too spacey. And not Kevin Spacey, like outer spacey.
Kevin Spacey, the president of the United States in the Dark Phoenix universe.
That'd be amazing.
It would be. But yeah, all right, there we go. That's perfect. There we go. There we have your final battle for Deadpool 3. Random Russian oil tycoon. There you go.
Ryan
There's
Reynolds has been doing Deadpool for years. I mean, they're already working on a X-Force movie with Deadpool. And, that's obviously not going to be a Deadpool solo movie, but Ryan Reynolds is so in love with that character, and people love the character enough that as long as the gimmick lasts, they're going to milk that thing for all it's worth.
Well, we gave them 10 minutes for Deadpool 3. They just need to write another 80 and we're great.
Justice League trailer. This one really didn't need to happen. It just basically was like, look, the heroes are smiling.
I'm slightly more interested in this trailer versus the last 7 we've had from them. It's starting to get a little Spider-Man 3E with me, where every trailer has a slightly different tone to it and focuses on a slightly different aspect, even though there's only one bad guy. There were some shots I really liked. There was this weird moment where the Batmobile is driving down this road, and they had the, of course, gratuitous zoom up on the shell casings bouncing out of the Batmobile as the Batman, who does not kill, proceeds to murder lots and lots of innocent people. But there was all these...
He doesn't murder humans. He's murdering parademons. There's a difference.
And truck drivers.
While also using a gun.
Don't forget, he does murder truck drivers. But there's this glorious shot where there's like fire and there's a shell casing and there's these purple orb ridge rock things coming through. And I'm like, well, it's actually a lovely shot. They're obviously trying to really hard to set up that at least 2 people have fun in this universe. Flash, who has bumbly fun, and
runs, and his whole thing is running, but he trips over a stair or a step.
Well, steps get to people. I mean, have you ever tried a Stairmaster? You eventually fall down.
But I mean, the whole thing with the Flash is that, at least in the comics, he perceives time completely differently. There's actually a really great moment in the TV show where they kind of talk about that. It's early on in season, I think they're on season 4 now, so it would be in season 3, where he has like 60 seconds left in his day, and it's just dragging because of how he perceives time, because of how fast he moves. And he's just like, a second feels like an hour to me.
Yeah, there's I've seen some comic panels that they've also play into that, where like they're arguing about how to defeat somebody, and he starts rubbing his head, and they're asking what's wrong. And he's like, to me, this conversation has gone on for a decade, or it's something like that. It's like he's talking about how like the beats between responses to him feels like an eternity sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And there's a really cool thing. It's been in the trailers ever since the very first one was before Zack Snyder got replaced, where he kind of like he activates the Speed Force, which I think that's a really cool concept, that he can just kind of turn it on, and then he can just live within this fast world that he can move in and out of. Obviously, we don't know if that's what the case is, but I think it's a really cool shot and a really cool concept, where you see the lightning strike and all of a sudden everything moves slowly around him, but he's moving really fast. That's probably the most intriguing part of the character to me. I'm not a huge fan of Ezra Miller. I think he's obviously the point of view character for this movie because he's being brought into this brand new. He's even saying, I haven't been doing this very long, even though in like Suicide Squad he's super cocky about capturing Captain Boomerang. Right. You know, he shows up and he's just like, hey, I'm the Flash, you know me. But apparently he's not been doing it that long. But he's obviously the point of view character, and he's going to be the guy the audience connects with the most because of this. But I really think this movie, especially this trailer, is really trying to get people to be like, man, Aquaman's amazing.
He is amazing.
He is. I'm not doubting that. But
he can swim, and I still want to know how, but somehow he is in the air, throws his trident, gets picked up because he's falling, gets caught by Cyborg, then Cyborg like rethrows him. He somehow regrabs his trident, throws it again, pierces somebody, and then lands on the Batmobile at full speed and does his trademark, yeah!
Well, don't forget with the Cyborg moment too. You know, he's just like, we're not done yet, and then he goes, my man. That part is great too.
I really, really hope that character is as fun as the trailer is trying to make him to be, and it is not just comes off as bro douchey horrible, because like
I think they're gonna paint him more of a, I think it's gonna be a little bit of a bro douche, because in that trailer he also says, you know, strongest man is strongest alone. You ever hear that saying?
Yeah.
And Batman goes, no, that's the opposite of the saying. And I think they're gonna paint him kind of as this like loner douche guy, but in reality he probably does want to be part of something bigger. I think that's what's going to lead into Aquaman, his solo movie, where he's going to be the reluctant ruler, but he knows that being a ruler means more than looking out for yourself, and that's going to be a growing situation for him.
I hope they don't go there, because in the Suicide Squad there was like Jai Courtney was, I think it was the 19th trailer where like he like cracks up in the beer while they're in the middle of a fight, and I was like laughing. I'm like, well, Jai Courtney is actually interesting. And then, of course, in the movie, he's not. But so I'm really hoping that they don't do that with Aquaman. That they keep him kind of this fun fish out of water. I don't know why I said that. Kind of guy, and that he's a little macho, but kind of fun and seems to enjoy war. That's one of the things I like about that they occasionally...
He enjoys the fight.
Yeah, which I actually really like the few times in the Thor movies where they allow Thor to fight, and actually kind of focus on him not losing, but he's actually having fun. Like beginning of Thor 2 when they beat those rock creatures, he was like having fun. And that's one of my favorite parts about the first Avengers movie is the Hulk Thor fight, because Thor is excited the entire time. He's not having to hold back. He's with somebody who's on his own level, and he's just enjoying himself in the fight while they're destroying the helicarrier, and that's one of my favorite things. So I'm hoping that because it looks like there's a crap ton of combat, that they're focused, that they have that in there as well for Aquaman.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Aquaman is going to steal the show. While the Flash is the point of view character, I think Aquaman is going to be the real comedic relief, because in the San Diego Comic-Con trailer, there's that moment where I think they're on the roof of GCPD when they're answering the bat signal, and Aquaman shows up in his full armor, and he's like, dress up like a bat. I can dig it. Yeah, I think they're giving him all the one-liners. Like everyone's gonna have like their own moment, just like in Avengers. But I think Aquaman's gonna. They're trying to make Aquaman everyone's favorite.
Yeah,
and like Aquaman's been an amazing character for decades. Mm-hmm. It's just because people associate him with the Super Friends cartoon that they're like, Aquaman stinks. He talks to fish. He doesn't talk to fish. He commands fish. They're too dumb to carry on a conversation. And as bad as the New 52 Justice League run was, Jeff Johns, I think, did a really good job, at least with the origin issues. I think it was the first 5 or 6 issues where, again, they're trying really hard to make Aquaman badass. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, it actually kind of works.
Yeah.
There's the moment when Aquaman shows up, the city, I think it's Central City, or maybe it's Metropolis. I think it's Central City because it's a bay city, is getting attacked by parademons. It's basically what this movie is, except they're replacing Darkseid with Steppenwolf, which we'll get to Steppenwolf in a second. But in the comic, Aquaman shows up, he hops out of the water, and he does the superhero landing, looks up, and he says, "Who's in charge? I vote me." And then Green Lantern, who in the New 52 is just this smarmy Nathan Fillion smartass, but not funny, because they're trying to make him seem kind of more douchey than anything. He's like, "Who the hell are you? What are you supposed to do?" And then Aquaman turns around, raises his hands, and like 3 or 4 sharks, great white sharks, just like pop out of the water and eat a bunch of parademons. And everyone's just like, holy shit. So yeah, I think that it's drawing from the Jeff Johns thing, because Jeff Johns has to stroke his own ego. I mean, the first Flash movie that we're getting in this DC universe is Flashpoint, which Jeff Johns was in charge of. That's a different story for another day. We're going to talk about the state of the DC universe after Justice League, and when we talk about the Justice League movie. Makes sense. We'll have the Justice League review the week it comes out, and then we'll have the state of the DC extended universe, or whatever they call their movie universe, the week after the Justice League review. But getting back onto the Justice League movie, Steppenwolf looks just like Ares from Wonder Woman. It looks like they just recycled that thing, and just instead of making him gray, they made him gold.
Yeah, it just didn't do anything for me. I mean, you had to point him out. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that actually is the bad guy. And there's, a palette swap. Joy. Did Parademons faceless enemy mow down 3,000, that's all we get. No, any big movie like this is what we're going to get, is just copy paste, let them destroy a few hundred of them, let them get overwhelmed briefly, and we'll, worry about the big bad at the end eventually. They obviously are teasing that that Lois Lane is still pining for Superman, and that chemistry they have together, and he's got to be dead.
That's a super awkward chemistry that they have. It really is. I love Amy Adams. She's adorable. I really like Henry Cavill. I think he could be a really good Superman if they made a really good Superman script. But among other things, they take the joy out of Superman. The first time we get a smiling Superman is in a dream sequence for Lois Lane, where the guy stands super awkwardly, and he's like, "I'll take that as a yes." Turn, smile, stick out my butt.
That was really weird. Not when you pointed that out, I'm like, that is a weird pose he has there. It's like no one gave him proper blocking. They're like, okay, you're gonna turn and face her, and you just rotated his, his upper body.
You're gonna stand and then you're gonna stand, turn to your side, and then face her. Okay, how far do I turn? Whatever, just do what feels natural. Can I stick my butt out? That I like doing that. Okay, sure, why not?
And he keeps his like right hand, like right arm across his body, like he's trying to like hide like a pregnancy belly, because like he has like 4 layers of shirt. Because of course you have to have like the white undershirt, you have to have a shirt, you have to have like a warmer shirt.
He doesn't have the
no, but then he has a flannel, an open.
He's got the flannel, but he's got the chest hair coming out because they went with the hairy chest Superman.
Oh, did they?
They got to show off that.
I swear he had a few of them, and then he has.
How
like,
else do you know he's Superman in this universe without the hairy chest?
Oh, that's true.
I mean, they even have a little bit of chest hair coming out of his
through the
his
flannel.
costume.
No, it's through the flannel.
Yeah, that too. But again, the first time we get a smiling Superman in this entire universe is in a dream sequence where he's dead.
I don't know. I mean,
it's the worst kept secret that he's coming back. The only thing that we don't know is, does he come back as a brainwashed villain, or is he gonna just magically appear in the Batcave? Because in the San Diego Comic-Con trailer, at the end, there's a moment where Alfred is talking to someone, and he's like, "He said you'd come. Hopefully it's not too late." And if you turn up the brightness a little bit, you can see on the shoulder it's a red cape. So obviously it's Superman.
You can see that they're doing tonal shifts, that they're trying to focus on spreading it out, the love for everybody. I'm kind of curious with the battle with the Amazonians. I'm wondering if that's like a back in time kind of thing, where they had battled them long before and suppressed this enemy, to give context to Wonder Woman emerging and being here for this new threat and what that means. And Cyborg's there for some reason. That's the only thing that's kind of annoying me a little bit, is that they haven't yet given Cyborg some kind of spotlight. I don't know if that's because they're not done with his... They're still not done with his CGI because it still looks really weird and really bad in places, or they just actually, or he's going to be given the short shift for this movie, because there's not been a focus on him or an explanation for him or something other than there's a robot dude running around.
Well, the explanation was kind of revealed in Dawn of Justice, where you see the guy who created Cyberdyne in Terminator 2. I forget his name. He plays I forget his first name, Dr. Stone, who is Victor Stone's dad. Victor Stone is, of course, Cyborg. And Victor, as you see in Dawn of Justice, is literally just a torso hanging on a wall. And Dr. Stone uses a mother box as like a last resort to save him, and it merges with him, and that's what creates him. But we are going to get an origin story, because there are shots in the first trailer where you see him not as Cyborg. So we're going to get some kind of backstory about what happened to him, what caused him to be just a torso, and then what his connection with the mother box is. No. There's also a really weird shot in the new trailer where he has some kind of display going on in between his hands, which makes no sense except for visualization for the audience, because as a cyborg, he would have a heads-up display that would give him that same information. So unless he's planning on sharing that information, it makes no sense. But DC is also not known for making their sense. And to kind of go off of what you're talking about with his CGI not looking very finished, we ran into that same problem with Dawn of Justice. That movie was literally done for about a year and a half before it actually released. And there were still moments in the money fight where Batman's suit just looked awful.
Oh, yeah.
You would think they would have more time to make that look better. I mean, there's obviously shots where you're just like, we can get by with this, just because of monetary restraints or putting the money somewhere else into a different shot. But yeah, there's some stuff that's definitely going to bother me because it's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that this is not the finished product, but we got maybe 5 weeks until it's released, so we'll see what happens with that.
All right, now moving on to the steak of our steak and potatoes here this week. The Star Wars The Last Jedi, I don't want to say it's the story trailer because it really didn't reveal much about the story. Trailer 2 for The Last Jedi. That's going to get me much more excited than I already am for this movie. So the trailer is just more whetting my appetite. It's just kind of keeping me sane while waiting for December 14th when the advanced screenings start happening. It reveals some things. I don't think it reveals enough to be really considered a spoiler other than the Finn and Phasma fight, because there's a lot of destruction going on in the background there, and we already have already been told that I think her name is Rose. There's a new character that Finn's teaming up with for this movie. Her name is Rose. I forget who she's played by. I'll have to look that up here. But Finn and Rose go on this adventure together where they're going to destroy a First Order installation, which is pretty obvious they succeed in this mission because there's a lot of destruction going on in the background of this Phasma fight.
Yeah, I've been kind of ambivalent about the last two, the last two Star Wars movies. The further I get away from The Force Awakens, the more it just doesn't do anything for me, and it's really even more sours. The Rogue One I thought was decent but unneeded. It was just they were trying to plug a plot hole that's not really a plot hole, and they may have actually taken away from it a little bit. I do hope that this one is better. I mean, I'm hoping that this one is a solid movie that actually expands the lore, that expands the characters, that gives me some kind of context as to what this new world is that they're actually trying to defend. Like, why are they fighting? Who's fighting who? Why is this important for us to give a damn about? But at the same time, I'm kind of wondering if the joking comparisons that this is one is going to rip off Empire Strikes Back is true, because there is a ice planet and there's ice creatures. There's these adorable little ice wolves with these little cool manes that are I guess the cute new tauntauns. Maybe they're the new toys. We're gonna have these ice dire wolves, and then there's the porg, which are adorable. I need a squeeze toy that when I squeeze it makes that sound, because that was a really cute sound. And they're obviously doing the whole, somebody's getting trained. Probably going to show both their training of Kylo Ren and
Rey.
And Rey, thank you. I was wanting to call her Rose because you kept saying Rose. I'm like, that's not her name. It's with an R though.
Rose is the character played by Kelly Marie Tran. I was looking her up. Kelly Marie Tran plays Rose, who's gonna go off on their own side adventure with Finn. Right,
and she's supposed to have a fairly large role because I think she's supposed to be Finn's BFF for this, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so then you have obviously they're going through training, which happens in Empire Strikes Back, but then there's some kind of battle towards the end where maybe somebody gets captured, because they kind of hinted with that. It looks like Rey is being force paralyzed, electrocuted.
She's putting
maybe
under some kind of stress by Snoke.
Yeah, by Snoke.
You can pretty clearly tell it's Snoke because he's got his gold robe going on in the background.
And so and it's obviously going to end on some kind of downer note to prepare us for the third one. I'm assuming somebody's probably going to die, whether that's Leia or Luke. Better not be Luke.
I think they've already confirmed that Leia's not coming back for the third one, so I'm assuming they're changing something in this story to make it Leia that won't be back.
I swear to God, if he actually does kill Leia, I'm going to be pissed. That's got to be a red herring, right? I mean, he's sitting the Kylo Ren crying in the ship while preparing to press the blaster.
I think it's supposed to show more of the fact that he's still not... When he kills Han Solo, he's supposed to have a clear path on the dark side. His decision to kill his father is supposed to be made is supposed to make his path to the dark side more straight.
Right.
Where obviously, I think by him destroying the mask shows that he's still struggling with his humanity and his light side or his good side, whatever you want to call it. So I think the fact that he's not running around with his mask is showing that internal conflict that's still going on. Right,
but I mean, what I'm saying is that the way the trailer sets it up, it looks like there's some kind of space battle going on. Leia's on the command bridge. He's targeting where she is. I'm assuming that's not the shot. I'm assuming that it's not him like conflicted and he presses the missiles and she dies because that.
Because they do hold on his hand, and it looks like he's maybe not necessarily struggling to hit it, but it looks like he's thinking about not hitting it. If you're going with parallels, that could be a very similar moment to the Han Solo death, where there's that shot where he and Han are shaking, struggling to pull the lightsaber out of each other's hands. And so I think that could be a similar parallel where he's struggling with the decision of, I'm going to kill my mother, and then, but I don't think they would put that in the trailer if it were that moment. I don't think they would, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
I don't think they would put Leia out like that. I think that would be a real injustice to the character unless she does something super heroic before then. I don't think, unless she's like the last person on that bridge, which I think in that shot she is not.
No,
unless she's the only person on that ship and she just evacuated everyone. I don't think there's any reason to think that's her death moment.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not. I mean, because from what the producer said is that the first movie is supposed to be Han, the second movie is supposed to be Luke, the third movie was supposed to be all around Leia. So obviously she makes it out of this movie in theory, unless they went back and edited something. But then they said they weren't going to do any CGI because that would be disrespectful to her. So I'm assuming she doesn't die. I just hope Luke doesn't die because I really want to see Luke go off on somebody and just see what his Force powers can be with 40 years of CGI behind him, you know?
Definitely.
What is the most powerful Jedi ever? What can he do when he decides to wreck things?
Yeah, there's some things in there that maybe Luke is more reluctant to use the Force because of what he's seen with Kylo Ren. It looks like we're going back to see what happened to his Jedi temple that Kylo Ren destroyed. Whether it's through a flashback or a Force vision, something's going to be made a little more clear in this movie. It looks like we see the shot where he like falls to his knees in front of the burning building, and obviously that's after Kylo Ren destroys his school. There's also that shot we were discussing when we were watching the trailer again a little bit ago, where Rey comes out of this pool of water, and Luke is all dressed in black, and he's like, "This isn't going to go how you think it's going to go, or this isn't going to end how you think it's going to." And I think that's going to be a parallel to the Vader thing in the tree on Dagobah.
Right.
Where I think that's going to be a dark side vision of Luke for Rey, where she's going to see what he could become if she doesn't do something. And I think that's what's going to set her off to go get Snoke. Is that I think she realizes that Luke needs to find a way to redeem Kylo Ren or Ben Solo in this scenario. Because obviously if he's Ben Solo, he's on the light side. So I think that might be what sets her off, is maybe not necessarily Luke refusing to train her, but she's going to try and save Luke by trying to redeem Kylo Ren.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I mean, we still don't know what this is about. The only thing that really bothered me about the trailer was why the heck is Captain Phasma and Finn having a sword fight? And I mean, they're both stormtroopers. Why aren't they just blasting at each other? That just kind of bothers me because I wonder if they're thinking they're trying to make it up to him in some way, because they hid that Rey was supposed to be a Force user until the movie, even though we all kind of suspected that. And so the only scene you saw is he had the lightsaber at one point, and he did fight with the lightsaber twice in the Force Awakens. So I'm wondering if they're giving him this is like, hey, you get another lightsaber fight, kind of, with the big baddie who's supposed to be as bad and awesome as Boba Fett is, because that's what we're doing here with a Chrome Trooper. But I don't know. That just bothered me because I'm like, why? They both have blasters. They both are stormtroopers. I mean, maybe they're going to shock us by having them fire their blasters, completely miss each other, run out of power, and have to actually go to fisticuffs.
Well, we don't know. Like you said, we don't know anything what's going on. Maybe those are the only two weapons that are available to them. Maybe Rose knocks the blaster out of Phasma's hands, so all they have is the batons and the fight stick or whatever it is. The idea of that electric baton makes sense in a world where Jedi exist, because if you have a blaster, they can just deflect those blaster shots.
Oh, yeah.
So having the baton makes it a hand-to-hand combat, so as long as you're training well enough, despite the fact that they have a lightsaber, you could technically survive the fight.
Yep.
Whereas if you have a blaster, you're basically trying to play the range game, but you're also kind of out of luck unless you can get someone to flank them from the other side.
Oh yeah, no, the weapon itself doesn't bother me because the whole history of the vibro swords and stuff from Star Wars lore, and also it kind of makes me excited about it because in the Force Awakens, where that guy screams traitor and he whips out the sword, whips out the baton thingy, it's like that makes sense because the Jedi had been gone for 20 something years, they would have fallen into disuse, but if Luke's back and Luke's training people, and everyone knows Luke is missing, so they don't know, is Luke missing training a bunch of secret Jedi and going to come back with the Jedi army, so they have to be prepared for him. And that excited me when I saw that, because I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. That it makes contextually sense. It gives a little bit about this world. Why would stormtroopers be running around having this? At least one dude in the brigade has to have this weapon and be on it. And so, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I like that, and I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning why two
cinematically cinematically it also makes more sense, and it makes it more personal if it's fisticuffs instead of a range fight between blasters, because you could basically just hide behind a box for however long and just kind of keep firing a shot, and it's not visually very interesting. No. It's the same reason why in a lot of movies you have people like The Lord of the Rings does it really well, where you have two magic users while they're they're still really physically close together during the fight. They're using their magic. So it still makes it visually interesting instead of it being between Gandalf and Saruman.
Oh, the wizard fight in the first one, yeah.
Yep. And that makes it visually interesting because, among other things, they're close together and they have to be within sight to be able to manipulate each other. Whereas in, like, Harry Potter, they pretty much have to be... It's a ranged fight. They're just flicking their wrists and yelling words. And it's not visually interesting until you put in the Ghostbuster lights and you have the really weird, like, slime dissolving of the wands hitting each other, which is a very cool effect.
Oh, I love that effect.
But until they started doing that sort of thing, the wizard fights were not very interesting, at least visually.
Have you seen the behind-the-scenes footage of Deathly Hallows Part 2? Where this is fantastic. You should look it up. It's hysterical because they have the Hogwarts group running at the Death Eaters group, and of course in the movie this is very dramatic because there's music and there's light and you see the spells going off and they're flying at each other and there's explosions, all kinds of stuff happening. But then behind the scenes is just two groups of people running at each other, flicking their wrists and like shouting. And it looks like they're preparing for a flash mob. It's so funny.
My favorite Harry Potter parody is how it should have ended for Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think they open it up with a shot of Voldemort holding out his wand and saying, "I'm going to defeat you, Harry. I'm pointing my wand at you as hard as I can." It's a great moment and a great line of dialogue from Dan Baxter and his people because, again, visually it looks ridiculous until you add in the special effects.
Yeah. Just like Elizabeth Olsen, she talks about like being on the set of The Avengers of Scarlet Witch and stuff like that. She has a person who trains her in the movements as to what they're supposed to represent and how she's supposed to do them. And she's like, it's a lot of trust involved because I just do all these like weird shaky motions and make faces and I have no clue what they're doing with the CGI. And so they actually showed like a clip of her like doing that motion, and then off to the side is Jeremy Renner, and he's just looking over like, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? Because of course there's no Scarlet powers.
Yeah, and like you said, it is a lot of trust in the post-production people, especially in a Star Wars movie, is very integral. Like the Simon Pegg cameo character, the guy who's in charge of dealing out the portions in The Force Awakens, that character probably looked completely ridiculous in the standard practical suit. Like, I'm sure the mouth didn't move right. Now they CGI'd the face, but everything else about that costume was practical.
You're right.
And I'm sure if they didn't have just like a tennis ball or something there for a reference for the computer, I'm sure if they actually had a motion mouth or something, I'm sure it just looked awful.
Yeah.
Or it looked like Beaker from the Muppets. Me, 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 me. But there's still a lot of really cool stuff. Speaking of practical things, the new AT-ATs, whatever they're called, the AT-PTs or whatever.
Yeah, who knows?
I'm sure some Star Wars nerd out there knows. I'm not that big of a nerd to investigate all of these vehicle names. Those look really cool, and they make sense as far as some of the things, because again, we're talking about how they have batons for ground troops who might encounter a Jedi. You have these new I'm going to continue to call them AT-ATs. I don't care. Or all-terrain vehicles, whatever you want to call them. Walkers. We'll call them walkers. Yeah. They have these new walkers that they have wire cutters built into these kind of like grommet sort of paddings that they have on the, I guess we'll say the shin of the legs.
Yeah, shin guards.
Yeah. And it makes sense after finding out that for whatever reason, wrapping a wire around them and making them fall weakens the hull for some reason. Makes sense because someone, they're going to do that. They're going to do that in the movie. They wouldn't put that in there without having it become a visual aesthetic in the movie. Like, oh snap, they can't do that anymore because the general audience isn't going to know. So they're going to have someone try and do the wire wrap, and then it's going to get snipped, and it's going to break free. That makes sense, and it shows that the Empire is learning. They thought they would take away 2 legs, and it'll be fine. We'll be able to beat some teddy bears.
Visually it looks interesting. I do like the color palettes that they're using, and I am going to be there opening weekend, watching it. Without knowing any of the story and just, because that's what a trailer is, just get you hyped for it. I'm just cautiously guarded that that hoping that they're going to give me what I want, which is more of an explanation as to what the actual stakes are. Why should I care about this? Why should I care about it?
What does the destruction of the New Republic homeworlds do?
Yeah, did that do anything? Do they even reference it?
I think that was one of my biggest letdowns for The Force Awakens. Is it did little to establish the new universe, so the new world order of the universe, new universe order, whatever. I'm reading the Star Wars Aftermath Life Debt book, which I believe the first Aftermath movie book deals more into the building of the New Republic, but I've not heard really good things about it, so I just kind of skipped it, and I moved on to Life Debt. And it is talking a lot more about the construction of the New Republic and the balance of power that's shifting. The Empire is now kind of becoming the new rebellion. They're not relegating, they're also fractured. Hux's dad, Domhnall Gleeson's character...
Bill Weasley.
Yeah. His dad makes an appearance in the book, and I'm probably only about a third of the way through it, so I don't know everything that's going on yet. But it's doing more for the world building. I'm just like, I wish they would have given me more information about this sort of thing in The Force Awakens, because all the race stuff and getting her out there, you could have taken the 10 to 15 minutes you had in the Rathtar scene and use that in the beginning of the movie and establish how the new galaxy is shaped, what the First Order is, how much power the First Order has. Because as far as I can tell, it seems like half the galaxy is First Order, half the galaxy is New Republic. It's kind of a Civil War sort of situation.
And leaving the movie theater, all I got out of it was like, the Empire rebranded. Okay, cool. Under new leadership, that's nice. They just put a new sign out front in front of Corellia, and we're like, listen, we're all good here. We're all good. Everything's perfectly fine. And maybe the entirety of the Resistance became the New Republic on those 5 planets that got blown up. I don't know.
Yeah. Like we don't know the significance of all of those planets that were blown up unless you read any of the added material, which. Yeah. At that time, I didn't want to. No. Thanks to Star Wars Rebels, I've been diving more into the expanded universe, but also thanks to Star Wars Rebels, which I'm not knocking the show. I'm super excited for this final season. I have gotten tired of the bridge in between episodes 3 and 4. That time period has no interest to me because all it is the Empire gaining more power and the Resistance building, or the Rebellion building larger. Yeah, that's all it is, and you can only tell so many stories out of there. Right. And same thing with the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars, I read Dark Disciple recently, and I talked about this with Derek, but I'm just going to touch on it again really quick, where the main characters you have are Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Asajj Ventress from the Clone Wars show, and Count Dooku, and a relatively newer character, oh dang it, I'm blanking on his name, Quinlan Vos. Quinlan Vos is a Jedi who is seduced by the dark side because he is manipulated by Ventress to dig into the dark side because that's the only way they're going to defeat Dooku. Well, this takes place during the Clone Wars. So I know Obi-Wan makes it. I know Yoda makes it. Yep. I know Dooku makes it. Yep. And they also talk about General Grievous briefly. I know Grievous makes it. So I have Ventress and Vos, who are the main characters of the story. But I really kind of already know... how it ends. There's no real stakes to the story other than these two characters, and they do a really good job of making you care about them and making the story actually matter as far as those two characters are concerned. But it doesn't matter in the long run. That story is completely superfluous. Right. It's a nice story, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't impact any outcome because there's a whole other movie that happens after this that impacts everything. And that's kind of where I am. So, the Clone Wars stuff is nice, especially if you can break away from the primary characters of Obi-Wan, Anakin, Yoda, use different characters. Like Mace Windu would be a fine character to bridge instead of using Yoda. Flesh him out a little bit more instead of making him that stoic Sam Jackson that no one wants. Build that character a little bit more while also introducing new characters. Because stories of the battles of the Clone War can still be interesting. Oh, yeah. Because among other things, if you're using characters people aren't familiar with, you can build stakes and you can make people invested, even though in the long run, the Clone Wars is going to end with the revelation that the Empire is now there.
And so that's why I have almost zero excitement for the Han Solo movies, because they're going to set it between 3 and 4, and I know Han lives. I know Chewie lives. I know Lando lives, and I don't really need a backstory of what the heck they were palling around doing right before he decided to end up in Mos Eisley. I know Jabba the Hutt. He works for Jabba the Hutt, and he's going to dump some cargo because Jabba's going to get, he's going to get pissed with Jabba, and they're going to have that conflict. That, we're starting to hear that he may be a mission against the Empire, that he may be doing the Kessel Run. The rumor is that James Earl Jones was called back to do voice work as Vader, and it's like, you're focusing on a character we know lives and a bunch of characters we know live. What are the stakes? What's interesting? Why am I supposed to be intrigued by the emotions that you're going to force me to go through over 2 hours with this movie?
And that's what made the third act to Rogue One work, is because they didn't necessarily make us care about these characters other than K2SO, but we didn't know the fate of these characters.
No,
so we wanted to know, like, oh man, there's a shield over this planet. How do they get off? Oh, they're not getting off. Well, how do they get to the planet? The planet's to the Death Star. Oh, that's how they get. Well, then how did the Death Star get to Leia? That's how. Oh my God! That last third of that movie is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I still really wish I could have seen. It was Gareth Edwards, right? Who did that one? I really wish we could have seen his cut of the movie.
Yeah, I need to. One of these days when I'm really bored, I have to remind myself to go back into Wikipedia and look at the plot outline that leaked out on the Thursday before the movie came out. Because I remember reading the plot outline, because I don't care about movie spoilers. I read the plot. It was detailed. It was like 6 paragraphs. And I read the plot outline, and then I saw the movie the next day, and I was like, that is completely different. I went back and it was completely edited. And then all the leaks started coming out about what the original plot was, what the original third act was, how that went, all that stuff. And it was completely different than what we got. Mm-hmm. And that plot was, everybody still died, but it was just completely different how everybody died. It was very much a last stand kind of death, where everybody's just being killed off little by little as they're carrying forth the plans, and the robot and the rebel agent, Cassian. They end up having to hole up in this bunker and defend the bunker that she's broadcasting it from, and then they end up dying, and they're trying to pierce the wall. And she ends up actually, what I remember is that the Death Star, to try to stop the plans from being transmitted to 100% completion, fires and blows up the bunker and wipes out wipes out part of the planet that way. But the transmission had finished. And so it was very much, the last stand, kind of like every guy is being killed off little by little by little by little, until you're bracing in that moment of like, well, we know she's going to get the plans off, but is she going to get off the planet? And then the Death Star fires, blows her up, but the transmission had been done.
Yeah. I'm calling this. We know there's a third solo movie, not Han Solo movie. Right. There's a third standalone Star Wars movie coming out. We don't know if it's going to be Boba Fett. We don't know if it's going to be Obi-Wan. We don't know if it's going to be Yoda. We don't know what it's going to be. But I'm calling this the plot hole trilogy, regardless, because it seems like that's all they're doing is filling in the plot holes. I guarantee you, this Han Solo movie is strictly trying to fill in the plot hole of, a parsec is a measure of distance, not a time frame. I guarantee you that's what it's going to be. It's going to fill in the gap of what the Kessel Run is.
I hope not. I really do.
And then whatever else is going on is going to be fluff. But the main focus is going to be, what does this universe consider a parsec?
Okay, so if this is the plot hole trilogy, that means they're going to use, because the rumor is that they were going to have the Boba Fett movie be between 3 and 4, which I would actually like. Because he was in 7, he's on 8. Not between 3 and 4, between 6 and 7. Which I would like, because that would help establish the world and what's going on. And in a world where the Empire is falling and the rebellion's trying to reestablish itself as a republic, a bounty hunter would be useful for either side. That could be interesting. And that would also help explain some of the world building. But what we're going to get in your plot hole trilogy is the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. And what was he doing between 3 and 4? And I guarantee you, they're going to, I understand he's in the Rebels. They're going to do something about what the heck he's doing on Tatooine, and I would love it if Lucasfilm had the gall to have him sitting on Tatooine for 2 hours just staring through binoculars, seeing what Luke's doing. Goes back to his hut, makes a little soup, eats it, practices his sand people scream, roar, goes back out there, sits binoculars, watches Luke grow up. Maybe cut in some random, because it's going to be live action, because Ewan McGregor's old enough. He looks, he's a part. He's starting to look more like that age. Cut back, maybe intersplice some, have him reference things. He's like, oh, I got to go off planet. Comes back. Oh, that was interesting with whatever character I did this from Rebels. Goes back. makes like a taco, looks through the binoculars again.
No.
That would be a fantastic movie.
It's not a plot hole, though, that Obi-Wan was watching over Luke. I think the plot hole would be, at some point, Obi-Wan clearly has to go to Uncle Owen,
Yeah.
and say, hey, would it be cool if I just kind of hung out with Luke? Because there's a spot in A New Hope where Obi-Wan says, your uncle didn't want you to have this, thought you'd follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool idealistic adventure like your father. And so obviously there's some point where Obi-Wan's going a little stir crazy and says, can I take Luke to town or something? Or can I teach him about the Force? And Owen's going to just put his foot down and go, no.
Oh, that's right. And there's also that, because Luke mentions, like, oh, what if they made me old Ben Kenobi? Oh, yeah, because it sounds like he peripherally knows him. Oh, there we go. Passes him in Mos Eisley while he's picking up, like, some little soup packets. And they start chit-chatting for 5 minutes.
I just had a great idea. What if it's this? What if it's Obi-Wan and Uncle Owen going on an adventure?
Oh, my God.
And that's what makes Uncle Owen say, Luke is never doing this shit. They go off on some adventure together, and he's basically 3PO, just throwing fits about everything.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Just like, what are we doing? I'm a farmer!
Oh, and because we have to tie it in together, for some reason, at one point, they have to hijack a ship. It's the Falcon. Because you have to
shoehorn in the Falcon.
You have to shoehorn the Falcon.
Well, but then that creates a new plot hole unless the Falcon's been stolen from Han. Because
No, because this is before Luke's like a teenager. So Lando doesn't have it yet. So this is before Lando gets it.
No, Lando had it. You mean Han?
Sorry, no, I mean, so this is no. What it would be is that this would be before Lando ends up with it, which means it was before Han gets it. So this is the owner before Lando is Obi-Wan.
I think we stick with Han Solo being the pilot. It takes place after the Han Solo movie.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Chewie clearly knows Obi-Wan.
Oh,
because if you remember in A New Hope, they're in the cantina, and Obi-Wan goes off, and he just has a nice little casual conversation with this Wookiee.
Oh,
no one's going to walk up to a Wookiee and be like, hey, buddy, how's it going?
Well, that's right. And when Chewie leads him over. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
because he goes and approaches Chewie.
Maybe Han is kidnapped or something, or Han's being held by the Hutts, and Chewie's like, hey, I need help, and Yoda maybe is like, I know Chewbacca, you guys can go do that, but I doubt that will actually ever happen because it seems like Disney is pretty much avoiding any references to the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy outside of referencing clones really briefly in The Force Awakens. But this has me actually excited for an Obi-Wan movie. I like this. I
actually love this idea because this is like the whole like Luke's like this is a great idea because we now have why he's so angry about it. He's like, no, you, because I can see it now. Like for some reason, he like tosses him like Anakin's lightsaber. Like, here, use this to defend yourself. I'll be right back. And he like turns it on, but like almost takes his foot out because he's like unsure how to handle it. And then he's just like, no, that old man is crazy. Stay away from it.
Yeah, it would make it more apparent why he is very much against this, because I mean obviously he knows what a Jedi is,
right, but
he wouldn't have any idea like what Luke would really be getting into other than the fact that the Empire would be hunting him by being a Force user. So I think that would still make a very fun movie because again you have the, not to this extreme, but you would have Bruce Willis and Chris Tucker in Fifth Element kind of thing, where you have the chiseled veteran who has seen it all before and he's just like, oh yeah, we'll get through this, you know. And then you have Uncle Owen, who is going to just be Chris Tucker underneath the cocktail cart screaming at the top of his lungs.
Well, here's the thing, is that we have to have Aunt Rue in there briefly, because Aunt Rue has that really weird, when you look at the entire trilogy, that weird, wistful moment of like, he has so much of his father in him. It's like, his father was a psychopathic murderer. You do realize that, you know?
Yeah, they only met him for like a day and a half.
Right.
And in that day and a half, he murdered an entire village of sand people.
And she
yelled about how much he hates sand.
And she got kids out of it. Well, a kid out of it somehow. So she has to be involved in somehow, or like
she has to pour some blue milk when they discuss the...
Yeah, they discuss, like, they're like, he's, like, freaked out. Obi-Wan's calming him down. They're like, listen, all right, cool. And she's just like, wow, this sounds like a great time you guys had. It's like, and you ran into who? Vader. Oh, okay. How's Anakin doing? Fine. So much of his father in him.
I like this idea.
It's a great idea.
Simon Kinberg will shoot it down. It's not grounded enough.
2 movies to pitch, man. We got a solid 10 to 15 of Deadpool 3, and we got a solid Obi-Wan pitch.
All right, so to surmise all of this, Star Wars. Talking about Star Wars. So I guess we're going to call it a wrap there. We went off on a huge tangent, but long story short, we're going to do a similar thing with Star Wars that we're doing with Justice League, where we're going to do a big Justice League review. I want like three or four of our guys that have been helping on this show talking about this movie, and hopefully it doesn't get too out of hand, because having that many people with a microphone in front of them can get a little disorienting. So hopefully we aren't talking over each other too much.
No.
And then we're going to also talk about the state of the Star Wars universe, where we're going, where we think we're going. It'll be a fun time. We're coming up on some really good movie times, and once Star Wars comes out, we're not too far away from Black Panther.
Ooh, that's right.
There's some good stuff coming up, so we're going to have a lot of really great content for you coming up here. Alex, thanks again for being on the show. Your point of view is always appreciated, and your time is always appreciated. So thanks again for coming back.
Oh, you're welcome.
And everyone, thanks again for listening. Your time is very appreciated as well. I know you could listen to a bunch of different podcasts, but we appreciate your time and your effort to listen to us. You can always find us on Facebook and YouTube, Talking Smack. Smack is spelled S-M-A-C. You can follow us on Twitter at Talking Smack Pod. And you can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh_Scar. Scar is spelled S-K-A-A-R. And Alex is not very social media inclined, so you won't be able to find him anywhere because he's a hermit.
Exactly.
Like Obi-Wan. I guess that would make me his Uncle Owen. And with that, I think...
the theme music this week, we decided to throw back a little bit. We're going to the theme music we used in episode 1, and we had a remix done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. So enjoy this.
And cue that theme music.